Okay, Bungie's not looking too good. Bungie's getting felted. And, you know, people are using this to kind of dance on the grave of Bungie, which I respect. I totally understand why they're doing that. But overall, Bungie, it's been announced recently that Bungie has officially, well, I should say Sony. Sony has reported that they have taken a $765 million impairment loss, almost $800 million of an impairment loss due to underperformance of Marathon developer Bungie. Now, see, the problem with stuff like this is that you can try to convince the world, guys, this happens all the fucking time. All right, this happens all the time where these studios and the shills that defend these studios, they're like, this is not happening. The game is super successful. The chuds are angry. The chuds are mad. You know what's so funny? I used to see all of these people all over social media every now and then whenever I would log on Twitter. I haven't seen a single one of them today. I haven't seen a single one of them. I haven't seen the Burt Peanut saying anything about it. I haven't seen literally all these Marathon defenders. Nobody is saying anything about this. $765 million impairment loss. Now, just to be very clear, okay? This is not all because of Marathon. I want to be very fair. I want to be very honest here. This is not all because of Marathon. This has to do with a multitude of things. But Marathon is part of this equation. Now, to my understanding, and we're going to get into it, out of this $765 million loss, 500 some odd million of that was in the recent quarter. Okay? So before we get into IGN's little story over here, Tom Henderson says the following. I'm not sure what Bungie can do with Marathon to turn it around. It's a fun game, and I have 245 hours in it. But it's clearly not appealing to the masses. Also makes me feel that Fair Games is on the chopping block because I have no idea how that will make money after seeing if Marathon did it. Now, I'm going to call it out straight up. Fair Games is cooked. If Sony releases Fair Games, brother, they got balls, okay? They got balls because Fair Games is going to come out and is going to die immediately. At least with Marathon, the Bungie fanboys, they sure fucking tried. But at the end of the day, they realized that this isn't a Destiny 3 that most of them wanted. And most of them never even played an extraction shooter. So they never had any idea of what the hell this was going to be about. All they knew is that it was the hottest Bungie thing that was coming out at the time. And they wanted to support Bungie. That was it. But as I said, what's going to happen to this game is not how it starts, but how it ends after 1 month. That's what's going to happen with this game. Because this game was going to have a decent start. I've always said that. But its sustainability is what's going to be questioned. Because, number one, live service games, you should be questioning sustainability. That should be most important to you. And number two, what's going to happen when the honeymoon phase is over? Right? When the honeymoon phase is over, that's basically it. So in any case, that's what Tom Henderson said and linked to Insider Gaming's story. Everybody's talking about this. Now, Paul Tassi says the following. In summary, Sony's $765 million impairment losses for Bungie means they are downwardly adjusting the value of an asset that I think everyone but Sony realized was probably not worth $3.6 billion. Now, again, keep in mind, even though you're adjusting the value of an asset, just because you didn't in theory, lose $760 some odd million, well, you did, because you paid billions of dollars for this company, and now that company is worth almost $1 billion less. So, yeah, you didn't lose $1 billion out of your pocket, but you lost $1 billion of value on a company that if you ever were to sell, it is now not going to be worth nowhere near what you paid for it, right? So, naturally, you did lose money. To some extent, you did absolutely lose money. I can understand why Paul Tassi is trying to frame it in a way that, kind of makes the damage seem less. But at the end of the day, Bungie is just fucking trash, man. They're not worth what they were bought for. This wouldn't be happening if Bungie games were doing great and printing loads of cash. Clearly, they're not. They're not. Like, Destiny 2 is doing nowhere near as good as it used to. And unfortunately, Marathon has split the player base now. So Now both games are essentially doing completely bad. Sony is at least publicly backing Marathon per its comments on the call. So the result of all of it is not some imminent game studio shutdown. Yeah, I don't think they're going to shut down Marathon. Again, if Marathon was a single-player game, they would probably be refunding people and canceling the game or whatever, or doing some sort of like tax write-off. But it's a live service video game. Sony loves their live service games. They're not going to shut it down. They're going to try to hold on to it as long as possible, especially since Sony took the biggest L in gaming history or live service history with what happened to Concord. So they don't want it to happen again. Right? Sony at this point is just going to probably absorb Bungie. Sony says it does not expect more big Bungie impairment losses in fiscal year 26. All this is to say there are no guarantees this doesn't produce something like layoffs and reduce overall investment in games like Marathon, Destiny, and future projects. None of this is good news outside of claims of future Marathon plans to try to turn things around. Emphasis on try. I remain very concerned about Destiny, and you should. You should. The moment this happened, you should be very concerned about Destiny. Honestly, the moment Marathon came out, you should be very concerned about Destiny, right? Because Destiny, in and of itself, requires some form of a time commitment. And now you're splitting Bungie fans with another video game that requires even more of a time commitment. So now people have to decide which way they're going to go. And some chose Marathon, some chose Destiny. But now you end up with two video games that has less players than one of the video games had in total at one point in time. You know? So according to this, it says, in our studio business, earnings from Bungie's title portfolio did not reach our expectations, so we downwardly revised the business plan and impaired the full amount of the fixed assets related to Bungie. Player reception to Marathon is strong, receiving a Metacritic score of 82 and more than 90% of the player reviews on Steam being positive. Engagement metrics such as retention also remain at a high level. Going forward, well, yeah, of course, because engagement metrics, those metrics go up the less players there are, right? Because the people that stick around, those are the ones that are playing for the longest amount of time. So engagement metrics are going to go up the lower the player base is, right? Going forward, we aim to improve the performance of the game by working to retain highly engaged core users. That's their key phrase, okay? Highly engaged core users is basically the corporate way of saying we lost 90% of our player base, so we're focusing on the last remaining 10% and doing everything we can to keep them. That's what they mean by core users. It's a corporate way to say we got felted on player numbers and we're trying to hold on to whoever's left. Through the introduction of additional content, further improvements to the gameplay experience, and expansion of the user base. Well, again, good luck with the expansion of the user base. I don't know how that's going to work out for you. You guys really haven't been doing that well. Now, here's the funny thing. I do like the Bungie fans. They tend to go a little bit crazy whenever they hear bad news, right? Because the game is reaching higher and higher 24-hour peaks because people are like, oh my God, the game's dying. We got to play the game. The game's dying. No, we can't let the game die. We got to play the game. Now, all of a sudden, they got to play the game. But even still, 15,000 compared to 88,000. They lost a lot of people, boys. It's bad. It's not good. It's not good. So they could do what they want. They could try to save the game to the best of their ability. And again, I don't want them to shut down the game. I know some people personally that enjoy Marathon. I think they're weird, but you know, it is what it is. If it's a game that you enjoy, I'm not going to tell you not to enjoy the game, right? And I bring this up all the time. People tell me Cat Quest is gay. You know what I tell them? You're gay. And then I went back to playing Cat Quest, you know? But no, seriously, all jokes aside, you can enjoy the game. It's fine. But the thing is, you have to have a conversation where you stop attacking people on Twitter and you stop saying, hey, you just hate the game because you suck at FPSs, brother. You know how many people I saw say that? You know how many people I saw say that you only hate Marathon because you suck at FPSs? Really? Really? You think everybody who hates Marathon sucks at FPSs? What the fuck? That's the biggest cope I've ever seen in my life. You know? I don't think Sony is going to sell Bungie. I think Sony views Bungie as what EA views BioWare as, right? Where having the name and the recognition that comes with that name is more important to them than anything else. They would be willing to subsidize, right? They would be willing to subsidize the studio in order to keep the legacy of the studio alive. Because for them, if they ever want to release a video game under that studio, they at least know that they have a legacy that they can market with versus shutting the studio down and opening up a brand new studio with no legacy behind it. So I don't think that they're going to sell Bungie. I don't think they're going to shut down Bungie. I think they're going to try to subsidize it for as long as they can. And considering that Sony has a lot of money, I think that I think they will do it for as long as they possibly can. I really do. Now, keep in mind, they lost a metric fuck ton of money on some of these other live service video games. But Marathon at least is yes, it is losing money, but still, I don't think it's going to lose as much compared to like Concord or anything like that. So they'd rather lose the money, in my opinion. So again, $765 million impairment loss. Bungie is now worth 2/3 of a way to $1 billion less than they were before. And they were already not worth that much compared to when they were bought out by Sony. This is a massive hit. And you're going to have people that are going to try to gaslight you and say, no. It's just valuation. It's not actual money. Guys, if you pay $4 billion for something and it's only worth $1 billion or $2 billion, 5 to 10 years later, how much money did you lose if you would try to sell it, right? How much money did you lose? You lost $2 billion fucking dollars, right? Because when you go to sell it, you can only get $2 billion for it. You paid $4 billion. So technically, yes, you did lose $2 billion fucking dollars, But in any case, that's basically where we're at. And Marathon, Bungie as a whole, they can try to say fan sentiment is strong on it, but in all actuality, also they said that Steam's user rating is 90% positive. It's not. It's 83% positive, which is still pretty good, but like I don't know what that's about. But anyway, this is where we're at with this game. At this point, it is now up to the few remaining, tens of thousands of people that are playing this game on PC. It's up to these guys. These guys got to hold it down. They got to start paying a lot of microtransactions. They got to start buying a whole bunch of $20 single colors. They got to do it. You guys got to pony up, man. No pun intended. You got to give up a ton of money. Because if you're out here, and we already know PC gamers don't spend on microtransactions like that. Not compared to PlayStation. So PC has the biggest player base, and they spend the least amount of money. Do you think that's going to work out good for Marathon? Probably not, right? If the biggest player base was available on PlayStation, then the story might be a little bit different because they spend money like crazy over there on microtransactions. But over here, it's probably not going to work out that great to have your biggest player base on the platform that spends the least amount of money, at least from a digital game standpoint, right? So, but that's basically it, boys. Bungie is so fucking cooked, man. They are. I would not be surprised, like Paul Tassi said, I would not be surprised if at some point, I don't know when, I gotta imagine it's probably gonna be very soon, you're gonna see the announcement of layoffs over at Bungie. You're gonna see quite a bit of people get felted and fired over at Bungie. Whether it's 10, 20, 50, 100, who knows? Probably 50 to 100 would be my guess, because that's a lot of money. So you got to make that money up real quick. I would not be surprised if you see layoffs. Layoffs are going to happen before any potential shutdown of the game or anything like that. I don't think they're going to shut it down whatsoever. But the layoffs, they're definitely coming. They're 100% coming.